If you've ever thought about living and performing on a cruise ship, you've probably imagined waking up in a new country every day, being paid to sing and travel the world. Well, some of that is definitely true. But there were also things that completely surprised me, both good and bad. I spent 5 months living and performing aboard a cruise ship, and here are the things that I would go back and tell myself, having actually had the experience now and actually knowing what it's like. Hi, welcome back to the Creative Girl Diaries. If you're new here, I'm Sarah. I'm an actor, photographer, content creator. I side quested a little too close to the sun. I spent 5 months performing on a cruise ship. We did Jersey Boys and another production show called Icons. Since I get so many questions about what it was like performing on a cruise, I thought I'd make a video about it and share my honest experience because it was rough, but it was also amazing. Okay, number one, this is the biggest thing for people. It isn't a vacation. This is your home and your workplace. You're expected to perform at a high caliber every single night. Well, sometimes not every single night. It completely depends, but the guests are here to enjoy their time and you're here to work. Which also brings up the point, you're living where you work, which sounds convenient until you realize that you can't leave. Yes. You are eating with these people, you are working with these people. While you can simultaneously enjoy the ports that the guests are also going to, you are contractually obligated to the job that you were hired to do, obviously. We actually had a lot of downtime because if you can imagine, our shows are in the evening. So during the day, we didn't really have much to do. So we were able to go off in port. I know it's a different experience for smaller cruise ships where those performers are obligated to do activities with the guests, but they can also go off in port at certain times. You're also under maritime law. So really whatever they say, you need to do. Perfect example, the first month while all of the guests were getting off and stuff, like I was under the impression that I'd get on the boat for the first month and be able to go to the ports immediately. Now, we had a month and a half long of new crew member training where I had to learn about fire extinguishers and what to do if the boat were to go down, hypothetically. This looked like being in a classroom for 6 hours, almost every day, with over 3 tests, including a physical test where we had to flip a raft. If you've already done a ship before, you most likely wouldn't have to go through this training because I think if you get your certificate, then it's good for like 5-ish years, but you need to make sure that you keep that certificate if you go to another ship or else you have to do it all over again. Yeah, so since I was a new member, I had to do all of that from scratch. And that actually started eating into the holiday time. So my parents came in December and I was worried that I wouldn't be able to get off in port because I had trainings and it was about to be the holidays. So we were about to start rehearsing for our holiday show. So yeah, especially at the beginning, it's really not a vacation. However, once things chilled out, like in January after the holiday season, and we stopped having put-in rehearsals and other extra rehearsals for our shows, then it started to get a little like a vacation. We had most of our days free and we were able to go off in port. Also, another important thing, there's this thing called IPM. IPM is in-port manning, and it means that some guests choose to stay on the ship and there has to be a certain amount of crew members that stay back. There were some people in my contract that were required to do IPM. In my contract, since I was a production principal, I was not required to do IPM. But yeah, if this is something that's part of your contract, then you most likely will be scheduled to do IPM either on a random or scheduled basis. Sometimes you can switch with people. I don't really know how it works, but I know that it exists. Another important point is since you're expected to perform at a high caliber, you can't be going off in port and being irresponsible. If you had a day off, sure, fine, and you had a show that night, you most likely should not be drinking or participating in crazy activities that would make you fatigued or drunk. Obviously, those are things to think about. Also, things in training that they talk about as well. They are very strict. Once again, you're under maritime law. Number 2, the friendships are unlike anything you will ever experience. These will be fast friendships and they're going to be very intense friendships, but they're going to be one of the best friendships you will ever have in your life. Because how many other people in your life can you say that you lived on a cruise ship with? Not many. I actually still talk to these friends like almost every single day. A lot of them are international, so I was able to go to the UK and visit them. They're actually on the UK tour of Jersey Boys right now, some of them. Some of them are Canadian. There were actually surprisingly like 5 Americans. Otherwise, it was a very international cast. That being said, these friends are the people that are going to go ashore with you. They're going to eat with you. They're going to see you at your lowest moments. Also, I will say, with any friendship, you need to pace yourself and trying to keep the peace. No drama here. Please please, no drama here. I was so lucky to be blessed with the most amazing cast. There were very unproblematic people. If there was drama, then it was squashed within like 2 days. We're human. We're actors. Cruise ships bring out the worst in people, but hopefully you have an amazing cast and it will not be a problem. Number 3, the travel is amazing, but it's not how it looks on Instagram. This is very true. And for my specific ship, we only went to 3 locations. If we were on a smaller ship per se, then we can definitely hit more locations. Usually my ship did like the Panama crossing. Okay, for context, my itinerary was the Mexican Riviera. We went to Puerto Vallarta, Mazatlan, and Cabo, and we port in LA. And we did that for weeks straight, 5 months in a row. If we had stayed on the ship a little longer, and we did get kicked off early because Choir of Man went and replaced us, no tea, no shade, but they actually got the cooler itinerary. They were able to do Mexico, Alaska, Panama crossing. They are doing New York as well. Like what? But I think with the timing and the holidays, my specific cast only did Mexico. So your itinerary completely depends on your contract and it completely depends on your ship. That being said, you also only have like a few hours in the port. Puerto Vallarta, I think we had like 6 hours. Mazatlan was 5 for us because we also had a show that night. So we had to make sure that we got back in due time. Cabo, however, it was a tender port and we had to wait for all of the cruise ship guests to tender. Tender means that like we were anchored in the middle of the sea and we had to take a tender boat to the port. Otherwise, like the normal thing is a cruise ship just goes right to the port. Yes, we had to wait for all of the guests to complete their tender process. And then we would hop on the ones with extra room, which means that we weren't getting off until like 11, 12. Crew all aboard time was an hour before the guests. So we had to get back on by 2. So like 11 to 2, that doesn't really give you much time in Cabo at all. But I still made sure that I get off because I just needed the fresh air. And I also was obsessed with this one cafe that they had. It was so good. Their cinnamon roll was unlike anything I've ever had, and their matcha was bussin'. It was so good. Yeah, but we weren't doing the Cabo, like Cabo, spring break Cabo. No, like we were getting off. Maybe if we were lucky, had an hour, had to go through the port and be harassed by a lot of people trying to sell us bracelets and put a lizard in our face. And then we would get on and then we'd get back on the ship and then have to do a show that evening. Since I did Icons and Jersey Boys, yeah, I was doing 8 shows a week. So I was doing 2 Monday, 2 Tuesday, 2 Thursday, 2 Friday. Sometimes on Saturday we would do a pop-up. Sunday we'd do like our sail away little thing that we did. Wednesday, we'd have like a proper day off. Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday, I would consider days off, but you have to consider Saturday was a sea day, Sunday was a port day, Monday, Tuesday were sea days. So we were stuck. We really only had Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to explore Mexico and our ports. So if I wanted to get off and go to the beach, then I had to wait until Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday was a wash because I was Cabo. So I was really on the ship for most of the time. And yeah, those sea days got rough. They got really rough. I read like over 15 books because I was so bored. You definitely will be tired. Sometimes people didn't even get off at all. I know one person who did the show, gamed until 4 a.m., slept until 2, and then woke up and just did the show and just did that over and over and didn't go out to the ports because he wanted to save money. That was his journey, and I support that. However, that was not me. I'm a very adventurous person, so I wanted to make sure that I got off at every single port because I would have gone crazy. I got very stir crazy because we had so many sea days. So instead of banging my head against my cabin walls, I made sure that I got off no matter what. Did that make me tired for the shows? Yes. Was it worth it though? For my mental health? Absolutely, yes. That's that. Number 4, the performing itself. This is going to get into a little business side. I only did the ship for Jersey Boys. Jersey Boys is one of my favorite shows. I had this audition like years ago and finally booked it years later. The best thing about Norwegian book shows, and rest in peace because they don't have them anymore, production shows are very closely linked to the original creative team. I got to work with the original direction of the Broadway show, with the original Broadway team, and Jersey Boys was the Broadway replica. It was shorter, but it was the Broadway version. So I was learning like Broadway directed material through award-winning directors, which made it crazy worth it because, of course, for the longevity of my career, that is an amazing connection to make. I did, however, because I did Jersey Boys, I was also contractually obligated to do their other production show called Icons, which, to be honest, I wasn't thrilled about because I really only wanted to do Jersey Boys. Icons, though, it did give me an amazing opportunity to sing pop music. I wasn't super comfortable singing pop music in front of an audience before, and this show gave me like a newfound love and confidence for pop music. The audiences ate it up every single night, even though they were so drunk. Since it happened at the beginning of the cruise, I was recognized throughout the week, so it made connecting with the guests so much more fun and better. And yeah, I mean, all of these are pros. I was obsessed with the shows I did. I don't think I would have had a similar experience if I wasn't obsessed with the shows that I did, because ship life is extremely hard, and the only things that would like bring me out of that rut were performing. I definitely got lucky in that department. Honestly, RIP Jersey Boys, we'll miss ya. Number 5. This one, living in a tiny cabin. I'm so salty because some of the Jersey Boys who only did 4 shows ended up getting this like massive officer cabin. Meanwhile, I was doing 8 shows a week and I had to be in this tiny single share. Thankful for that. But yeah, tiny cabin with a shared bathroom. My shoilet mate was my best friend, so it was fine. We had like a connecting room. The shoilet quite literally and shower at the same time. It was so small. I remember walking into this room and, nearly crying because it was smaller than a shoebox. Through something that they call Sad Santa, which is where the old cast brings all of their like storage containers and decorations and they put it in the dressing room for the next cast, I was able to get a lot of drawers and organizers and baskets, things that made the transition easier. This was so much better than going to Target, getting everything from scratch and then lugging it to the ship. So thankfully I had that option. And like I said, thankfully I didn't have a roommate. Oh my God, I could not imagine being in a double bunk. I just couldn't. There were a lot of people that were. If you were, I'm so impressed. I made the room my own. It ended up being fine. It ended up being a super cozy, amazing little room that I read in with my fairy lights, my illegal fairy lights. Also with laundry, you do crew laundry. We had the option to put our laundry in like a little bag and it would get picked up when our rooms would get clean. Oh, that's another thing. Twice a week, we'd get new towels and our sheets changed. So yeah, that was definitely a privilege that we had, was laundry and cleaning service. And in terms of privacy, you didn't really get any because if you can imagine, you're on a floating vessel made of metal. The walls are super thin. I could definitely hear what was happening to the left of me when I slept. You can hear everything that happens through the vents. Crew bar was 2 floors below me. So sometimes on karaoke nights or when they were having, their little things, I'd get home from the show and hear oonts, 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 oonts. And that's definitely not easy to sleep through. Yeah, honestly, the first few months, rough in terms of sleep. I'm a very light sleeper. This was the biggest thing that I was nervous about, was how I was going to sleep with the noise. It was such an issue until it wasn't. I honestly think that I got used to it and I wore my AirPod Max's blasted white noise and it ended up being fine. That was until we had a very rocky day, and when the boat would, hit a wave, we call it hit a whale. Sometimes at like 2 a.m. when it was super windy, it would sound like going off. So that would definitely wake me up. Also, the sound of all of my storage containers falling, that also woke me up. Yeah, that was completely dependent on the weather and the wind. Sometimes it happened, sometimes it didn't. Number 6, the food. Honestly, got really lucky. Had really good food, had really good guest food. The crew mess, I would avoid at all costs. Morning and lunch, it would be like crew mess times. There I just get chicken and rice. We were able to do the guest buffet for dinner, which was amazing because I could actually get like every single food group. And I would try not to eat a lot of sweets. I definitely did though. I would try to avoid to not eat a lot of sweets on show days, / like fried foods just for, my body purposes. It's really easy to get tired of the same food. Thankfully, I'm a creature of habit, so it didn't really matter to me. I will say it's pretty hard to eat healthy though. I was eating a lot of chicken and rice, a lot. Also in between shows, they gave us a food cart, which was massively stacked with carbs, but I was able to put in a dietary restriction. So I was able to get a plate of chicken and rice in between every show, which was like amazing. And I feel bad for the people that didn't have that option, because they were stuck like eating sandwiches and cookies and whatever. And that's just like sometimes not sustainable. It wasn't sustainable. That's a fact. So if I had any extra chicken and rice, I made sure to share. But yeah, honest opinion, crew mess, it's really rough. And depending on what ship you're on, the guest food can also be rough. Thankfully, mine was not. Lastly, the hardest part. It's the isolation, the feeling lonely, the missing friends, missing family. It's real. you're away for a long time. We had to pay $28 a week if we wanted to access Wi-Fi. I am chronically online and I like to talk to my friends all the time, so I made sure that I paid that $28 a week, or else you literally couldn't do anything. You could do like WhatsApp, but Americans don't really use WhatsApp, and my parents weren't about to get WhatsApp, so I got the Wi-Fi for the iMessage, Instagram, TikTok. It was the streaming Wi-Fi, by the way. And the fact that I was away for the holidays. I was away for Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, and Valentine's Day. So many holidays away from friends and family. Thankfully, my parents came to visit in December, and they also came to visit in February. So I saw them a few times and they enjoyed their vacation. I think that that was like the best part for them, is that where I worked, they could come visit me and it was a vacation for them. But then it honestly became a vacation for me, because the minute that you have guests on, you get guest privileges. So I was able to get off at guest times. I was able to stay in their room, take a bath. It was so lovely. It was so amazing. Also, like, the relationships that you form have to become your second family. During Christmas, I was so nervous because it was my first Christmas away from home. But thankfully, we had so many Christmas activities. We did like trivia and bingo. My friends and I gathered in my friend's officer cabin and we did like a Santa tracker the night before Christmas. We got off and did like a Christmas breakfast. Thanksgiving, even though it was like such an international crew, was widely celebrated because our ship was like an American company. So Thanksgiving was definitely celebrated. I'd say the burnout is definitely real. And also, important point, me saying this as I'm like so stuffy, I have a very reactive immune system, and I didn't have the cruise ship germs and the cruise ship immunity that so many other ship people had. So maybe like once a month I was getting sick, so sick for like weeks on end. And with like the circulated air and medicine, there's definitely medical on board with like a stacked pharmacy. They're actually lovely. Yeah, I was getting so sick. It would make me have to call out of shows. I was losing my voice. Yeah, like I would get like down bad sick because the cruise ship is a floating petri dish. So you definitely have to make sure that you take care of yourself. Or also GI is a thing. They take hand washing extremely seriously. Washy, happy. They mean it, okay? They mean it. You need to be washing your hands or else you could get GI. I had GI and it wasn't fun. Fighting for my life for like a week. And also it's like really easy to lose routine because while you're doing like the same thing over and over, it just becomes boring. That's why there was like a little thing that we had. It was like a little challenge where you had to go to the gym 4 times a week, or you had to buy everyone in that challenge Starbucks. And we had like a little board in our Tom office to keep track of all of that stuff. And it ended up being super cute, and it motivated me to go to the gym. And even just like pacing myself, if I were to go to the gym, like I'm not doing crazy strength training, just like with all of the shows that we do. But I just get on the treadmill and I'd read. And to me, that was nice and routine. And if I was feeling super bored on a sea day, I'd go up to the crew deck. I'd invite some friends. I'd read with them, or we'd play Minecraft. Iconic. And we beat the Ender Dragon. Fun fact. It's hard. It's really, really, really hard. But then all of the pros completely outweigh all of the cons, in my opinion. I mean, Mexico was stunning. The friendships I made were beautiful. I loved performing Jersey Boys and Icons. And I feel like I grew as a performer. And I really feel like that's all you can ask for, right? A contract is a contract at the end of the day. I have always been curious about what it was like to live on a cruise ship and live my sweet life of Zach and Cody life. Like I saw that growing up and I was like, I want to live on a cruise ship. So I did. Would I do it again? Yeah, definitely. If it was for the right show, 100%. Was by no means perfect, but it gave me an amazing professional experience, lifelong friends, confidence, and memories that I'll have forever. I also had the free time to learn about the type of performer and person that I wanted to become. If you're thinking about performing on a cruise ship, leave your questions down below. I'd be so happy to answer them. And if you've enjoyed following the life of a working actor and creative, I'd love if you could subscribe to my channel because I've got some pretty exciting things happening. Once again, I'm Sarah. Thanks for tuning in to Creative Girl Diaries, and have a beautiful day or evening, whatever time it is for you. Bye.